Captain Arik Dane adjusted his uniform nervously as he stepped out of the shuttle. The Elorian sun glinted off the smooth, glassy surface of the embassy. This was humanity's first official contact with the Zilarians, a species both brilliant and mysterious. Arik had read every report, watched every simulation, and learned their customs as best he could. Yet as he looked at the shimmering towers and the alien crowds moving gracefully across the plaza, he felt a knot in his stomach. "Remember, Arik," said Ambassador Hales, the human envoy, "they value precision and respect. One wrong move, and we could offend an entire species. Try to stay human but careful." Arik nodded. He had always been careful, but this was different. The Zilarians were tall, elegant, and almost too beautiful to look at. Their skin shimmered like liquid, crystal changing colors subtly with their moods, a living mood ring. Their eyes were enormous, iridescent, and intelligent. And then there was the princess. Princess Lyra was unlike any Zilarian Arik had seen. She moved with a quiet grace, yet there was a spark in her eyes, curiosity, mischief, and intelligence all wrapped together. When she noticed him staring, she tilted her head slightly and smiled. It was a tiny gesture, but it sent shivers down Arik's spine. "Stay calm," he muttered under his breath. "Don't embarrass yourself." The plaza was buzzing with activity. Xilarians were performing ceremonial dances, their movements precise and mesmerizing. Humans looked slightly awkward in comparison. Arik tried to mimic one of the gestures they had shown him, a polite greeting, but he stumbled slightly, earning a soft, amused glance from Lyra. "Not bad for a human," she said in a voice that sounded like liquid silver. The words were translated through a small device on Arik's wrist, but the melody of her tone made him nervous anyway. He nodded quickly. "Thank you, Princess." "Lyra," he said. She smiled again. There was a quiet curiosity in her eyes, as if she were studying him. Arik felt his heart rate increase. He had dealt with aliens before, but none like her. There was something human-like in her expressions, yet completely alien. The ceremony began. The Zilarian council members took their seats on a raised platform, their robes flowing and shimmering in multiple colors. Arik followed behind Ambassador Hales, trying to look confident. He was about to speak his first words as a human representative. When he realized the translations might fail him, he cleared his throat. "Honorable Council and Princess Lyra," he began, "we come in peace from Earth. We hope to establish friendship and mutual respect." Then he panicked. He wanted to compliment the princess for noticing his awkward bow, for studying him with such attention, for being herself. And without thinking, he blurted out in Zilarian, "I love you." Time froze. The words echoed strangely in the ceremonial hall. Arik's stomach sank. He had accidentally used the Zilarian phrase for romantic affection, phrase that was supposed to be reserved for very serious bonds. Princess Lyra's eyes widened. Her expression changed, but not in the way he expected. There was no anger, no shock, no disdain. Instead, she leaned forward slightly, her iridescent skin flickering with soft blues and purples, and whispered a single phrase, "At Lasu." Arik froze. "At Lasu?" he whispered under his breath, unsure if he had heard correctly. Lyra smiled faintly, the kind of smile that hinted at a secret. Then she stepped back and gave him a slight bow before turning her attention back to the ceremony. Arik's mind was spinning. What did that mean? Ambassador Hales gave him a subtle, warning glance. "Captain Dane, perhaps focus on the ceremony for now," he said softly. Arik nodded, but he barely heard the rest of the speech. His thoughts kept drifting back to Lyra and her mysterious phrase. It sounded important, significant, maybe even friendly. After the ceremony, there was a formal reception in the embassy gardens. Tall, crystalline trees glowed faintly, casting a soft light over the gathering. Humans mingled with Zilarians, exchanging polite words, handshakes, and in some cases, awkward bows. Arik stayed close to the princess, trying to appear casual. Lyra noticed him lingering and approached. "Captain Dane," she said, her voice musical and gentle. "You did not offend anyone today yet." Arik laughed nervously. "I hope so. I don't know why I said that." Her eyes flickered with amusement. "Humans speak with passion, sometimes without thinking. That is interesting." "Interesting?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "I think I embarrassed myself." "Perhaps," she said, her lips curling slightly. "Or perhaps you showed courage. The Zilarian way is careful and precise. Your way is bold, reckless even, yet honest." Arik felt his face flush. He had never considered that humans' emotional openness could be seen as a strength, especially by an alien species. "Your phrase," he said cautiously. "At Lasu, what does it mean?" Lyra's gaze softened. She tilted her head, considering. "It is not simple to translate. It is not a phrase for ordinary conversation. Roughly, it means trust me with your heart." Arik blinked. "Trust me with my heart?" She nodded. "Yes, it is a rare phrase, a promise, or an invitation. Humans do not often speak with such care, yet you stumbled into something very human." His mind raced. "I stumbled into something very human?" Somehow that sounded like a compliment, and somehow it made his chest tighten. Before he could respond, a group of Zilarian children approached, their skin glittering in pink and silver. They were curious about the humans, poking and whispering among themselves. Lyra knelt slightly, allowing them to approach her. Arik watched, fascinated. Even royalty could be patient and gentle. Even royalty could be relatable. Lyra glanced back at him. "Do not worry," she whispered quietly, so only he could hear. "You did not embarrass yourself. Perhaps you have started something new." Arik nodded, though he did not fully understand. He only knew one thing. He wanted to learn what something new meant. As the reception ended, humans and Zilarians prepared to leave the gardens. Arik stayed a little behind, hoping for one last glance at the princess. She walked past him slowly, her gaze meeting his. Then, just before leaving, she whispered again, "At Lasu." Arik's heart leapt. He knew he had to remember this phrase to understand it fully. It was more than a whisper. It was a doorway into a new world, a world of trust, courage, and perhaps unexpected friendship. That night, back in the human quarters, Arik could not sleep. He kept repeating the phrase in his mind, "At Lasu, at Lasu." What did it truly mean? Why had she said it? And most importantly, what would come next? For the first time, Arik felt the thrill of the unknown. The humans had arrived on an alien world, ready to prove themselves. But this was different. This was personal. This was a connection between species, fragile yet profound. And Arik knew, deep down, that he had just stumbled into an adventure unlike any other. He smiled despite his nerves. Tomorrow, he thought, would be the beginning of something extraordinary. The next morning, Captain Arik Dane woke to the soft hum of the Yalorian embassy. Light filtered through the crystal walls, bathing the quarters in gentle blues and purples. He rubbed his eyes, still thinking about Princess Lyra's words, "Adieu." Lasu. What did it truly mean? He had asked the translators, the cultural AI, and even the embassy's Zilarian liaison, but no one could give him a clear answer. Humans were logical, precise, but the Zilarians spoke in subtle gestures, in tone, in expressions that changed like shifting colors. Words alone could not capture the depth of their meaning. Arik had learned to trust his instincts, though, and his instinct told him that At Lasu was important. Very important. He dressed quickly, keeping his uniform neat. Today he would try to observe Lyra again to learn more. Ambassador Hales had given him instructions. Do not overstep, Dane. Watch, listen, and follow the protocol. Your actions may influence the Council's perception of humans. Arik nodded, though his mind was elsewhere. Influence her perception first, he muttered quietly. The first meeting of the day was a council briefing. Zalarian elders discussed trade, resources, and diplomatic treaties. Humans sat on the outer benches, mostly observing. Arik's eyes kept darting to the princess. She sat with perfect posture, her hands folded, her eyes scanning the room with intelligence and curiosity. During the break, she approached him again. "Captain Dane," she said softly, her voice musical. "You seem troubled." I am trying to understand at Lasu," Arik admitted, lowering his voice. "No one has explained it properly. Not even the translators. What does it mean?" Lyra's eyes sparkled faintly. "It is not a word for casual conversation. Humans speak too much with words. Zalarians, we speak with trust, with intent, with our hearts. At Lasu is an invitation to openness, to understanding, to connection." Arik swallowed hard. "So, it's like telling someone you can trust them?" "Yes," she said, her lips curving into a slight smile. "But more. It is deeper. It is rare. A promise of honesty. A bond not lightly given." Arik's mind raced. The humans valued trust, courage, and honesty, but this was something more profound. Something he had never encountered in diplomacy. It was personal, emotional, fragile yet powerful. "Why me?" he asked, almost whispering. "Why would you say that to a human?" Lyra tilted her head, studying him. "You did not intend it, yet you spoke honestly. Humans act with heart, without overthinking. It is refreshing, courageous even." Arik's cheeks warmed. He had never felt proud of an accidental phrase before, but somehow this was different. The rest of the day was filled with briefings and tours of the embassy. Arik tried to focus on his duties, but his attention kept drifting back to Lyra. At every moment he observed her, the way her skin shifted from soft green to pale violet when she laughed at a minor misunderstanding, the gentle movements of her hands as she gestured, and the way her eyes seemed to search his own whenever she thought he wasn't looking. During lunch in the Crystal Gardens, Arik found himself sitting near her again. The gardens were alive with glowing plants and soft-colored pools. Zalarians moved around them silently, and the human's presence felt awkward yet fascinating to the aliens. "You enjoy Earth?" Lyra asked, tilting her head. Arik laughed. "I have not been there yet. I only know it from reports and simulations. Reports cannot capture courage," she said, "or mistakes, or laughter, or fear. Humans are unpredictable. But that makes them intriguing." Arik nearly choked on his sip of water. Intriguing? To the princess? Somehow that felt more dangerous than any battle he had ever faced. "Lyra," he began cautiously, "I want to understand more. About your people. About you. About at Lasu." She considered him silently for a moment, her eyes flickering like sunlight on water. "Then you must observe, not ask. You must witness how we act, how we trust, how we bind our hearts. Humans speak too quickly. Zalarians, we show." The words puzzled him, but he nodded. "Then I will watch, and I will try to learn." Her skin shimmered faintly, a soft silver glow. "Good. Observe carefully, Captain Dane. Humans and Zalarians are very different. One misstep and misunderstandings can escalate." He smiled nervously. "I will try to avoid missteps." Lyra's smile widened slightly, though faintly. "You have already made one, or two. Yet here you are, courageous enough to continue. That is rare." After lunch, the ambassador pulled Arik aside. "You are treading dangerous ground," Hales said, whispering. "Princess Lyra is no ordinary diplomat. If you do not proceed carefully, humans could offend her, or worse, embarrass themselves in front of the council." Arik nodded, his mind racing. "I understand, but I feel there's something more. Something about at Lasu." I need to understand it. You're walking a fine line, Dane, Hales warned. Trust me, humans and aliens do not often bond this quickly. Arik swallowed. Maybe that is exactly what we need. Over the next few days, Arik followed Lyra wherever protocol allowed. He watched as she interacted with other Zilarians, noting her subtle gestures of approval, her quiet smiles, and the rare moments of warmth she showed. He observed her kindness to younger Zilarians, her patience with difficult diplomats, and her quiet laughter when small things went wrong. He began to notice a pattern. Lyra only allowed humans, him, to see glimpses of her true self. Other aliens respected her, but her trust was selective. It was a fragile thing, and he had been given it without intending to. At Lasu. One evening, after a long day of briefings, Arik found himself alone in the garden again. The soft glow of the crystal trees reflected in the pools and the embassy was quiet. Lyra appeared seemingly out of nowhere, walking toward him. Captain Dane, she said softly, do you understand yet? I think I do, he replied slowly. It is trust, a bond, an invitation to connect. But it is more than words, it is something living, something fragile. Her eyes glimmered, a hint of surprise in them. You are beginning to understand. Few humans could. You speak too quickly. But your heart, it is steady. I want to learn, he said. I want to understand your people and I want to understand you. Lyra tilted her head, considering him. Then for the first time she allowed herself a very small human-like gesture, a gentle touch on his arm. Then you shall, but carefully, slowly. Zilarians do not reveal themselves easily. Humans rarely understand subtlety. Yet I believe you might. Arik's heart leapt. That one touch was electric. The warmth, the trust. It was a simple gesture, yet it carried more meaning than any ceremony, any council discussion, or any translation could convey. Thank you, he whispered. I will not waste it. You already have, Lyra said, stepping back. Her skin shimmered softly, a pale green now, as if she were content. By speaking honestly, without understanding, without fear, you have shown courage. And that is worthy of trust. The words sank in. Arik realized something important. Humans had a unique gift. They acted with heart, often without overthinking. They made mistakes, yes, but those mistakes were honest, sincere, and courageous. The Zilarians, brilliant as they were, often hid behind perfection, protocol, and caution. Humanity's boldness, their willingness to act emotionally and honestly, was rare and valuable. He thought of Lasu again. It was more than words. It was a bridge, a key, a doorway. Lyra looked at him one last time before disappearing down a crystal-lit path. Tomorrow, she said softly, almost to herself, we shall see if he truly understands. Alone, Arik walked back to his quarters, feeling both nervous and exhilarated. The humans had arrived on Eloria to prove themselves in diplomacy and science. Yet he had stumbled into something far more profound, the fragile beginnings of trust between species, and perhaps the beginnings of a bond with the alien princess. Herself, he smiled, thinking of her words and her touch. At Lasu. The next morning, Captain Arik Dane awoke to the soft hum of the Elorian embassy, the crystal walls glowing faintly as if they were alive. Today was different. Today he would accompany Princess Lyra on a mission, an observation tour of the mining colony on Eloria's northern continent. It was unusual for a human to be included in such a trip, even as a diplomat, but Lyra had requested him personally. The council had been wary, whispering among themselves about the boldness of letting a human travel so close to Zilarian operations. Yet the princess's word was enough. Arik dressed quickly, making sure his uniform was spotless. Every movement felt heavier than usual. The honor of being chosen by Lyra was one thing. The responsibility of surviving the journey was another. The shuttle lifted smoothly into the air, rising over the crystalline city. Arik watched the shimmering towers shrink beneath them as Eloria's wild northern landscape stretched ahead. Vast mountains, deep valleys, and swirling mists that shimmered with alien colors. Lyra sat across from him, quiet, her eyes scanning the horizon. Her skin shimmered faintly, a pale green interspersed with soft violet flashes. Arik wondered what she thought of humans. He felt nervous under her gaze, yet strangely encouraged. "Captain Dane," she began softly, "you must observe carefully. The northern lands are dangerous not just because of the terrain or the creatures, but because of misunderstandings. Humans act boldly. Zalarians act cautiously. Both can lead to mistakes." "I understand, Princess," he said. "I'll be careful." She tilted her head slightly, her eyes reflecting amusement. "Careful, yes, but courage is more important than caution. You will need it." The shuttle descended into a valley surrounded by jagged crystal cliffs. The mining colony was small but busy, with machinery extracting luminous minerals from the mountains. Humans and Zalarians worked side by side, though the Zalarians' movements were precise and silent, while the humans moved with energy and occasional clumsiness. The first challenge came almost immediately. A sudden tremor shook the valley, dislodging rocks from the cliffs above. Alarms blared and both humans and Zalarians scrambled. Arik reacted instantly. He grabbed a nearby worker and pulled her out of the way just as a rock crashed where she had been standing moments before. Lyra's eyes widened, a flicker of soft violet crossing her skin. "Humans act without hesitation," she whispered to herself, and then turned to Arik. "Well done." He felt his chest swell with pride, though fear still lingered. The tremor was only a warning. More challenges awaited. The team continued deeper into the mining tunnels, the walls glowing faintly with luminescent minerals. Suddenly, an underground stream overflowed, flooding part of the tunnel. Alarms blared again, and the workers panicked. Arik took the lead, organizing humans and Zalarians alike. "Form 2 lines. Help the workers move the equipment. Stay calm." His voice echoed through the tunnels. Lyra watched silently, but there was admiration in her eyes. She was studying him, seeing how a human could act in crisis, boldly, decisively, yet with care for others. Hours passed, and the challenges continued. A sudden cave-in blocked one passage, forcing them to find an alternate route. Arik, familiar with human improvisation, suggested using a nearby maintenance tunnel. It was risky, but it worked. By the time the group emerged into the open air again, the sun was dipping behind jagged mountains, casting long shadows across the valley. Humans were exhausted, but the Zalarians seemed impressed. Lyra approached Arik. "You act with both courage and compassion. Few humans do both. That is why I chose to bring you." Arik felt a thrill of pride mixed with nervousness. "Thank you, Princess. I just try to do the right thing." Her eyes softened. "Sometimes the right thing is not obvious, but you see it." As they walked back to the shuttle, Arik noticed a small Zalarian child trapped near a shallow cliff. The child had wandered too close to the edge, and the loose rock beneath threatened to give way. Without thinking, Arik sprinted forward. He reached the child just in time, pulling him back to safety. Lyra's skin shimmered in a brilliant violet and green, a rare display of intense emotion. "You see, Captain Dane," she said softly, once the child was safe. "Humans act with instinct. That is your strength. Zalarians hesitate, analyze, often too long. You act, and yet you do not act recklessly. That is remarkable." Arik felt a warmth he could not describe. He had saved a life, yes, but more than that, he had earned the quiet respect of the princess. Later, as the sun disappeared entirely, and the valley was bathed in soft moonlight, the shuttle carried them back to the embassy. Arik could not stop thinking about Lasu. The phrase had first terrified him, confused him, and now it seemed to make sense. Lyra's trust in him, the way she included him in dangerous missions, the way she allowed him to act. It was all part of it. In the evening, as they prepared to disembark, Lyra spoke quietly. "Captain Dane, you have done well today. You have earned my trust in ways few humans or Zellerians ever could. That is the meaning of at Lasu. It is not just words. It is action. It is courage. It is heart." Arik swallowed hard. I think I understand now. It is trust, connection, courage, and honesty. "Yes," Lyra said softly, her eyes meeting his. "And perhaps a beginning." The shuttle landed smoothly at the embassy, and Arik helped the exhausted humans disembark. Lyra lingered, walking beside him as they headed toward the crystal gardens. "You see," she said, "humans are unpredictable, bold, emotional, reckless at times. Yet there is something about your species, something that inspires trust. You act with heart. That is rare. That is valuable." Arik felt a mixture of pride and humility. He had never considered that humans could be seen as valuable in such a way, especially by a species so advanced and precise. "Lyra," he said, I want to continue learning about your people, your world, and about at Lasu." She smiled faintly. "Then you shall, but you must understand, trust is fragile. Courage is tested by more than physical danger. You will face challenges that cannot be solved with strength or words alone. You must act with heart. Always with heart." Arik nodded solemnly. He did not fully know what challenges awaited, but he was ready. The humans had come to Iloria to prove themselves in diplomacy, science, and exploration, but he now understood something more. The human heart was their greatest strength, and he would need every bit of it to continue this journey. The evening faded into night, the crystal towers of the embassy glowing softly against the dark sky. Arik walked through the gardens alone for a moment, thinking of Lyra and her rare, profound trust. At Lasu. The words were no longer a mystery. They were a promise, a challenge, a bond. And deep down, he knew that the trials had only begun. The next day, he would face not just the dangers of Iloria's wild lands, but also the subtle complexities of alien diplomacy, trust, and the fragile beginnings of a human-alien bond that could change the future forever. For now, though, he allowed himself a quiet moment of satisfaction. He had survived the first trial. He had acted with courage and heart, and he had earned a small, precious part of Princess Lyra's trust. The sun rose slowly over the crystalline towers of Iloria, casting shimmering light across the embassy. Captain Arik Dane stood in the garden, reviewing notes on Zellerian diplomacy. Today was crucial. He had been summoned to appear before the Zellerian Council alongside Princess Lyra. The council wanted to test him, to see if a human could truly understand Zellerian ways, and whether his bond with Lyra was trustworthy. Ambassador Hales approached him quietly. "Captain Dane, the council will test you in ways beyond combat or negotiation," he said. "This is about wisdom, integrity, and understanding Zellerian values. Remember what Lyra has taught you. Trust, courage, heart. These will guide you, more than any manual." Arik nodded. He had survived the trials in the northern lands, but this was different. The council was not just testing his abilities, they were testing humanity itself. The council chamber was vast, circular, and filled with shimmering light. Elder Zellerians sat in raised seats, their robes glowing with colors that shifted with emotion. At the center stood Lyra, poised and serene. Arik felt a mixture of awe and nerves as he stepped forward. The council's leader, Elder Vale, spoke first. "Captain Dane, you have traveled with our princess and survived challenges in the northern lands. Yet survival is only part of the test. Here you must demonstrate understanding, wisdom, and the courage to act rightly when faced with difficult choices." Arik nodded. "I am ready, Elder Vale." The first trial was a simulated diplomatic crisis. A dispute had arisen between two mining factions over access to rare crystals. The Zalarians wanted a fair resolution, but tensions were high. Arik was presented with multiple options: follow strict protocol, enforce one side's claim, or negotiate a compromise. He remembered Lyra's words: act with heart. Humans often acted boldly, but wisely. Arik chose the path of compromise. He proposed a plan where both factions would share resources and implement safety measures to prevent future conflict. The council watched silently as the simulation played out. The factions agreed to the compromise, their trust in each other restored. Elder Vial's eyes flickered with approval. "You have acted with both courage and wisdom," Vial said. "Few humans could navigate this so carefully. Yet, your actions are only part of the test." Next, Arik faced a moral challenge. A simulation presented a choice: save a human engineer trapped in a collapsing tunnel, or rescue a Zalarian worker equally endangered. There was only time to save one. Arik's mind raced. Human instinct might dictate saving their own, but his heart told him otherwise. He acted quickly, devising a method to save both. Using his knowledge of human improvisation and the Zalarian's precision, he coordinated a quick rescue. Both, the engineer and the worker, survived. Lyra's eyes glimmered softly. "You see, Captain Dane," she whispered, "humans act with heart. You did not hesitate. You did not choose one life over another. That is the meaning of Lasu: trust, courage, and integrity combined." The council murmured among themselves. They had expected humans to struggle with their tests, but Arik's solutions were both clever and compassionate. He had demonstrated that humanity's emotional openness and boldness were strengths, not weaknesses. Finally, the council presented a philosophical challenge. Elder Vial spoke. "Captain Dane, a leader's decisions affect many lives. Zalarians value foresight, precision, and calm logic. Humans act with passion, sometimes recklessly. How can we trust that your species will act wisely in critical matters?" Arik paused. He thought of the northern lands, the flooded tunnels, and the cave-ins. He thought of Lyra's trust, and the phrase, "at Lasu." Then he spoke. "Elders, humans, may act boldly, and sometimes that boldness leads to mistakes. But we also act with courage, empathy, and honesty. We value trust and connection. A human who acts with heart can achieve what strict logic alone cannot. I have learned from your princess that courage guided by integrity, guided by Lasu, can unite people and species alike." The council remained silent for a moment. Then Elder Vale nodded slowly. "Your words show understanding and wisdom. Not only have you proven your skill, but you have demonstrated the human heart, a rare and valuable trait indeed. Perhaps humans are not as reckless as we feared." Lyra stepped forward. "Captain Dane has acted with courage, integrity, and compassion. He has earned not only my trust, but a place in understanding between our species." Applause, soft but meaningful, echoed through the chamber. The other Zalarians had seen what Arik had accomplished: his boldness, his creativity, and above all, his heart. Later, in a quiet corridor, Lyra approached him. Her skin shimmered softly, shades of pale blue and green. "You did well today," she said quietly. "The council has seen what I have known, that humans, though unpredictable, possess courage and heart. You have shown both." Arik smiled, though he felt exhausted. I just tried to do the right thing, to act with honesty and care." "That is enough," she replied. "For humans, that is extraordinary. For Zalarians, it is refreshing. You have reminded us that courage and honesty are not limited by species." Arik felt a strange warmth, deeper than pride or happiness. It was the trust he had earned, the understanding that he had connected with someone from an entirely different species in a way that mattered. The evening was spent in the embassy gardens. The soft glow of the crystal trees reflected in the pools, and humans and Zalarians mingled peacefully. Arik walked with Lyra, the silence between them comfortable. the understanding deepening. "You have learned much," Lyra said softly, "but there is more ahead. The Council's approval is only the beginning. Our relationship, your relationship with this world, will be tested further, not by simulations, but by real choices, real dangers." "I'm ready," Arik said firmly. "I've learned to trust my heart, and I've learned what at Lasu means. I will not fail." Lyra's eyes sparkled faintly. "Then you may yet surprise even the oldest Zalarians." As night fell, Arik returned to his quarters, reflecting on the day. Humans had often underestimated themselves in the galaxy, relying on technology, strategy, and sheer will. But Arik realized now that humanity's true strength lay in its heart. Courage, empathy, honesty. These were qualities that no simulation, no calculation could replace. He thought of Lyra, her rare smile, her subtle gestures of trust. The bond they were forming was fragile yet powerful. And it was exactly this bond that could bridge the gap between their species. Before sleep claimed him, Arik whispered softly to himself, "At Lasu, trust, courage, heart. I understand now, and I will not forget." Somewhere in the crystal halls of the embassy, Lyra watched the stars and smiled faintly. The human had passed the trials of the Council. He had proven that the human heart was as brave and honorable as any Zalarian mind. The morning light danced across the crystal towers of the Ilorian embassy, signaling the beginning of a new day. Captain Arik Dane stood on the observation balcony, gazing at the alien horizon. Today was the day he had been preparing for, not just for himself, but for humanity. The Council had tested him, yes, but now a greater challenge awaited, the chance to solidify the bond between humans and Zalarians. Princess Lyra approached silently, her skin shimmering in soft shades of silver and green. "Captain Dane," she said gently, "are you ready?" "I am," Arik replied, standing straighter. "Whatever the Council or the world asks of us, I'm ready." Lyra's eyes softened. "Good. Today will not be a test of strength or intelligence or diplomacy alone. Today is about trust, about understanding, about the courage to act from the heart." Arik nodded. He understood. At Lasu, trust me with your heart. He had felt it, practiced it, and learned its meaning in action. Now he would live it. The Council had arranged a demonstration of human Zalarian cooperation. The task was simple in description but difficult in execution. Navigate the hazardous Virelia Pass, a treacherous canyon with unstable terrain and unpredictable storms. The mission was to retrieve a lost shipment of rare minerals before the storm trapped it forever. Zalarians had attempted it several times, but none had succeeded fully. Arik glanced at the princess. "You will come with me?" Lyra's lips curved, slightly. "I will. Together we act as equals. Trust me, and I will trust you." The journey began with a shuttle ride across jagged cliffs and shimmering valleys. Arik observed the landscape, noting the sharp drops, the unstable paths, and the glowing minerals embedded in the canyon walls. It was dangerous, but that danger was a chance to act courageously. The landing was rough. Winds whipped around them, and loose rocks tumbled from the canyon walls. The Zalarians moved with precision, but the humans' adaptability and improvisation made the group faster. Arik led the human team, coordinating with Lyra, who guided them silently with subtle gestures and glances. "Watch your step," he called, as a loose boulder rolled near a worker. Lyra's hand briefly touched his arm, a small, comforting gesture. Arik felt a surge of confidence, trust, courage, heart. At Lasu, the first obstacle was a collapsed bridge, spanning a chasm deep enough to swallow a shuttle. The Zalarians debated the risk, analyzing every possibility. Arik looked around, assessing, quickly. Using ropes, planks, and a bit of human improvisation, he created a temporary crossing. "Careful," Lyra warned softly. "Your boldness, it could be dangerous if miscalculated." I know, he said, gripping the ropes tightly, but we must act. Step by step they crossed. The Zilarians followed, eyes wide in cautious admiration. The humans adapted quickly to the uneven surface, and the collaboration of species, the combination of boldness and precision, made it possible. Further along the canyon, a sudden rockslide blocked their path. The team froze. Lyra's skin flickered, violet with alarm. Arik did not hesitate. Form a chain. Move the rocks together. Keep calm, he shouted. His instructions combined human creativity and quick thinking with the Zilarians' precision. Together, they cleared the path. Lyra watched, him with growing admiration. Few humans possess such balance, she whispered to herself. Courage guided by care, boldness guided by heart. At last, they reached the lost mineral shipment. The crates were damaged but recoverable. As the storm clouds gathered overhead, Arik coordinated the loading. Humans lifted and moved with brute strength and ingenuity, while Zilarians guided with finesse. Lyra stayed close, occasionally gesturing or helping with delicate crates. Their teamwork was seamless. Each action reinforced trust. Each gesture strengthened understanding. At Lasu was no longer just words, it was living, breathing between them. As the last crate was secured, a loud rumble echoed through the canyon. The storm had arrived. Winds tore at their clothes, and lightning danced across the cliffs. The shuttle was the only safe route back, but reaching it would be dangerous. Everyone move quickly, Arik shouted. Stay close. Trust the team. Trust yourselves. The group ran, guided by Arik's quick thinking and Lyra's subtle signals. A particularly large boulder fell directly in their path. Without hesitation, Arik pushed a human worker out of the way and grabbed a supporting rope to redirect the boulder's path. The effort strained him, but the worker was safe. Lyra's skin flickered a brilliant mix of green and violet, an expression of both concern and approval. Finally, they reached the shuttle. Exhausted but triumphant, they lifted off just as the storm struck fully, lightning cracking across the canyon. From the air, the crew watched as the treacherous path they had conquered became a blur of clouds and rock. Back at the embassy, Arik and Lyra disembarked, their uniforms soaked and faces streaked with dust and sweat. The council awaited, along with Ambassador Hales and the human team. A hush fell over the chamber. Elder Vielle stepped forward. Captain Dane, Princess Lyra, you have returned successfully. Not only have you completed the task, but you have demonstrated the meaning of At Lasu, trust, courage, and integrity. You have proven that humans and Zilarians can act together, understanding each other beyond words and protocol. Lyra looked at Arik, her eyes soft and shimmering. You see, Captain Dane, she said, her voice almost musical. At Lasu is not just a phrase. It is action. It is understanding. It is the willingness to trust and to give trust in return. You have lived it, and now it is real between us. Arik felt a surge of warmth, all the nervousness, all the fear of saying the wrong thing or acting too boldly. It had led to this moment. The human heart, open and courageous, had bridged the gap between two very different species. Lyra, he said softly, I understand. Now at Lasu is not just trust, it's connection. Courage, honesty, it's a promise to act with heart. She smiled faintly. And you have fulfilled that promise. Together we have shown that humans and Zilarians can build bonds stronger than fear, stronger than doubt. The council murmured in approval, their skepticism replaced with admiration. The humans' boldness and integrity had earned not only respect but a lasting symbol of cooperation. Later, in the quiet of the Crystal Gardens, Arik and Lyra walked side by side. The pools reflected their images, shimmering together in the soft light. You have shown the humans' greatest strength, Lyra said. Courage guided by heart. Recklessness tempered by care. That is why I whispered at Lasu to you the first time. I saw potential, honesty, and courage. Arik smiled. I never imagined an accidental phrase could lead to this, to understanding, to connection with someone like you. Lyra's eyes softened. Sometimes, the universe chooses the bold. Sometimes mistakes reveal what is most true. They paused, looking at the distant horizon, the city glowing behind them. For the first time, Arik felt that humans had a place in this galaxy, not just as explorers or diplomats, but as a species capable of courage, honesty, and heart. Dane, Lyra whispered almost to herself. At Lasu is realized. Arik nodded slowly. Yes, it is. And I will carry it with me always. The sun set over the crystalline towers, painting the sky in colors that reflected the Zalarian's shimmering skin. Humanity had arrived not only with technology and courage, but with heart. And in the quiet glow of the embassy gardens, a human and an alien princess stood together, bound by trust, understanding, and the rare, profound meaning of Atlasu. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges, dangers, and mysteries. But Arik Dane had learned something invaluable. The human heart, when honest and courageous, could bridge worlds, inspire trust, and forge bonds stronger than any calculation or strategy. And somewhere in that glowing garden, Princess Lyra smiled, knowing that the first bridge between humans and Zalarians had been built, not with words alone, but with courage, trust, and the heart's quiet power. The adventure was far from over, but for now, humanity had proven itself, and Arik had realized the meaning of a phrase whispered across worlds.